You would think that in a world of digital renderings and AI-driven designs, physical models are a thing of the past. However, during my time at a successful architecture office in Copenhagen, I spent quite a bit of time building things by hand. Architects still make models. So let me show you why. As a junior architect in Copenhagen, I spent hours crafting physical models. And it wasn't just busy work, it was an essential part of the design process. Physical models helped architects understand space, form, proportion in a way that screens really cannot replicate. These models weren't only pristine presentation models, but mostly just tests of volume, shape, sight, and style. They give clients and the design teams something tangible, something they can physically walk around, touch, analyze from different angles. So, how do these models actually come together? It starts with a plan. You decide the scale, material, and what details to include. What are the talking points? What do you want to discover or analyze? Usually the design already has some sort of idea, whether it is a general shape or site restrictions. Then comes the precision work, cutting foam, wood, or acrylic to bring the design to life. And to me, that's the fun part. Every piece has to fit perfectly, and sometimes that means trial and error. If you've ever built an architecture model, you probably know the struggle of cutting something just a little too short. But whether it is a rough proposal or a finished product, models provide a way to get a sense of the reality of a project. So sometimes it even helps to find solutions to structural questions. With 3D modeling software and VR and all that, you might wonder why not just stay digital? I mean, we're moving forward, not going backwards, right? So the answer is really simple. I mean, physical models bring a different kind of clarity. They make abstract ideas feel real. Sometimes architects get stuck in the 3D, and it really helps to find a new perspective and way of looking at things. In school, we were always told that model making teaches patience and craftsmanship, and it was kind of a requirement that some people really dreaded. But beyond that, it is really thinking through design problems in a physical way, and thinking and designing through making and building. So sometimes you'll notice things in a model that you might miss on a screen. Sometimes a 3D model feels spacious and airy, but then in reality the room is cramped. So these things really stand out when you're making a scale mockup. And I think that is irreplaceable. Now, model making is time consuming, but it's worth it. It's not just about the presentation, but more about this discovery I mentioned. And that's why architects still build models by hand. Of course, there's tools like laser cutters, foam cutters, 3D printing. And I mean, we've already played with that, but so there's something special about putting things together with your own hands and gluing things together that makes your mind think in a different way. Not all architecture models are the same. So really depending on what you're designing, you might build different types of models for different purposes. Now, architects and architecture students are like, I'm sure know this, but to maybe the outside world from this little bubble, you only can think of architecture models as this pristine, perfect, detailed 1 to 50 model, or like a huge replication of something that's super finished and complete. But there's more models than that. Usually we work with concept models, which are quick, rough models made in the early stages of the process. Massing models, so these focus on the overall shape and proportion of a building. Detail models, now this is the more famous ones from the architectural world, and they kind of zoom in on specific architectural elements like facades or structural joints. And of course, presentation models. So those are the final polished models that are made to impress a client for an exhibition or to replicate something that is already complete. So there's quite a lot to pick from, but the one that I'm working on today is actually just a volume scale site model, and that is to give context to a proposed site where a new design can come about. So what's changing in the architectural world? 3D printing, for example, is making model making faster and more precise, but of course it has to be programmed beforehand, which doesn't allow this kind of spontaneous change and working with the material as with paper or with sculpting. Digital and physical models are also working together, in my opinion, not really replacing each other. And there's definitely a growing appreciation for the craft of handmade work, even now in this digital age, as people call it. So at the end of the day, model making isn't just about the final product, it is definitely about the process. And the act of making a model forces you to really slow down and think through a problem on a scaled level. And that interaction with architecture, in that way, it really cannot be replicated or replaced by any software. After hours of cutting, gluing, and sometimes redoing entire sections, this is the final result. It's just a simple context model. It doesn't show much detail, only the landscape and kind of general site, but it really does test shadows, sun orientation, how things look like in proportion to one another. Do you think model making is still relevant in architecture? I mean, let me know. I'm really curious. And if you enjoyed this behind the scenes, don't forget to like and subscribe for more architecture content. Bye!